The line between reality and the supernatural can blur into something far more terrifying. Halloween was always a time of mischief for us teenagers. We would gather after dark, armed with costumes, pranks, and the thrill of the season. This year we devised a plan that we thought was the ultimate Halloween trick, one that would leave the entire neighborhood spooked. Little did we know that our prank would turn the night into a real-life horror story. Our plan was simple. We would dress as eerie, ghostly figures and stage a haunting in the old abandoned mansion at the edge of our neighborhood. The mansion had a reputation for being haunted, and we figured it was the perfect setting for our Halloween escapade. As the sun set and the streets grew darker, we assembled at the foot of the mansion's grand staircase, our excitement building. Dressed in tattered white sheets with eye holes cut out, we looked like classic ghosts straight out of a spooky tale. Our mission was to create eerie sounds and shadows that would send shivers down the spines of anyone who dared to approach. The mansion itself was a foreboding sight. Its crumbling facade loomed against the moonlit sky, ivy creeping up the walls like skeletal fingers. Broken windows gazed out like empty eye sockets, and the air was heavy with the scent of dampness and decay. As we made our way inside, our footsteps echoed in the dimly lit hallways. Cobwebs hung like gossamer drapes, and the once grand chandeliers swayed ominously overhead. We couldn't have asked for a better backdrop for our Halloween prank. The night began as planned, with our ghostly figures drifting through the mansion's dark hallways, creating eerie shadows and ghostly sounds. We had rigged some simple tricks, for example, a creaky floorboard here, a rattling window there. Nothing too crazy, as it was all meant to give the impression of restless spirits. As we moved deeper into the mansion, our confidence grew. We couldn't see the reactions of the unsuspecting neighbors outside, but we imagined their fear and excitement as they witnessed our spectral performance. But then something changed. It started with a sound, a soft, mournful wail that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. We froze in our ghostly costumes, exchanging nervous glances. None of us had planned for this, and the unsettling sound sent a chill down our spines. The wail grew louder, more pronounced, and it was as if the very walls of the mansion were crying out in anguish. We tried to backtrack, to leave the mansion and end our prank, but the exit doors had slammed shut behind us, trapping us inside. Panic set in as we realized we were no longer in control of the situation. The wail continued, its source impossible to pinpoint, and it was accompanied by otherworldly moans and whispers that seemed to seep from the very walls themselves. We split up in a desperate attempt to find the source of the eerie sounds. I found myself in a grand, dusty library, books covered in cobwebs and the air heavy with the scent of age. As I scanned the room, a sudden movement caught my eye, a shadowy figure in the corner, its form shifting and indistinct. I tried to call out to it, thinking it was one of my friends trying to scare me, but the figure did not respond. It simply stared at me with hollow, empty eyes, its presence sending shivers down my spine. I backed away slowly, my heart pounding, and turned to leave the room. But as I reached the doorway, the figure glided toward me, its movements unnatural and unsettling. It reached out a cold, bony hand, and I felt a freezing chill pass through me as its fingers brushed my skin. With a scream, I stumbled out of the room and into the hallway, where I collided with my friends, all of whom had their own tales of eerie encounters. We were no longer in control of the situation, and the mansion seemed to have come to life, its malevolent presence closing in around us. As we regrouped, we heard a new sound, a sinister, mocking laughter that echoed through the mansion. It was a chilling, inhuman sound, and it seemed to surround us from all sides. We knew then that our prank had gone terribly wrong, that we had stirred something beyond our understanding. Desperate to escape, we made our way to the mansion's grand staircase, but it seemed to stretch endlessly upward, as if leading to some dark abyss. The laughter grew louder, more menacing, and the wailing and moaning continued, filling the air with a cacophony of dread. With no other options, we rushed up the staircase, our hearts racing, our minds filled with terror. The upper floors of the mansion were even more decrepit and unsettling than the lower ones, with faded wallpaper and broken furniture. As we explored the upper floors, the laughter continued to haunt us, and the shadowy figures appeared and disappeared, their empty eyes following our every move. It was as if the very mansion itself had come to life, intent on keeping us within its haunted halls. Hours passed, or maybe it was days' time lost all meaning as we struggled to find a way out. We were trapped in a never-ending nightmare, unable to escape the mansion's malevolent grip. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the laughter stopped and the wailing and moaning faded into silence. We collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath, our bodies bruised and battered from the relentless ordeal. As dawn broke, we stumbled out of the mansion, our minds and bodies scarred by the horrors we had witnessed. The mansion stood silent and foreboding in the morning light, its secrets buried within its crumbling walls. We never spoke of that Halloween night again, and we never returned to the mansion. We had learned the hard way that Halloween tricks can sometimes turn into real-life nightmares beyond our wildest imagination. If you're enjoying our creepy stories and would like to continue getting spooked, make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell notifications so you don't miss any upcoming stories. Halloween had always been a highlight in our quiet neighborhood every year. Children in colorful costumes would flood the streets, laughter and excitement in the air. It was a night for families to come together to celebrate the spooky and supernatural. Little did I know that one Halloween night would become a haunting memory etched in my mind forever. The evening had been perfect. The decorations were up, the candy bowl filled, and the porch light aglow. My wife and I loved seeing the children's faces light up when they received their treats. We cherished the sense of community that Halloween brought, and it was a tradition we eagerly anticipated. As the sun set, the first trick-or-treaters arrived, their costumes ranging from witches to superheroes. We greeted each one with a smile, and the children departed with bags full of candy and smiles on their faces. Then as the night grew darker, a chill settled in the air, and an unsettling silence fell upon our street. We exchanged uneasy glances, wondering where the usual excitement had gone. It was as if a heaviness had descended, casting a shadow over the festivities. As we stood on our porch, the porch light flickered ominously. I dismissed it as a minor electrical glitch and handed out candy to the few remaining trick-or-treaters, but something felt off and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Just as I was about to head inside, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was a child, or at least it appeared to be one. The costume was strange, a tattered hooded cloak that obscured their face completely. All I could see were a pair of piercing, unnaturally bright eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. The child stood there, unmoving as if waiting for something. My unease deepened, but I didn't want to be rude. I offered a piece of candy, but the figure made no move to take it. Instead, they extended a bony hand, palm up, as if expecting something more. I exchanged a puzzled glance with my wife, unsure of what to do. Finally, I placed a few extra pieces of candy in the child's hand. As they closed their fingers around the candy, I couldn't help but notice how cold their touch was, like ice. Without a word, the child turned and melted back into the darkness, disappearing into the night. My wife and I exchanged bewildered looks that had been the oddest encounter we'd ever had on Halloween. Shrugging off the unsettling encounter, we went back inside and tried to enjoy the remainder of the evening. However, the sense of unease lingered, and I found myself glancing at the window, half expecting to see those piercing eyes staring back at me from the darkness. As the night wore on, I decided to investigate. I slipped out of the house and into the cool night air, the darkness pressing in around me. I followed the path that the strange trick-or-treater had taken, my heart pounding in my chest. I ventured deeper into the neighborhood, my flashlight cutting through the shadows. The streets were empty, and an eerie silence hung in the air. It was as if the world had become still, holding its breath. I soon found myself at the edge of the woods that bordered our neighborhood. The sensation of being watched intensified, and I shined my flashlight into the dense trees. There, among the gnarled branches and twisted roots, I saw them, the piercing eyes glowing in the darkness. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. The figure was no longer in its childlike form. It had transformed into something monstrous, a hulking, shadowy presence. It loomed in the trees, its eyes fixed on me with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. Unable to tear my gaze away, I watched as the figure slowly extended a long, skeletal arm toward me. It beckoned, its fingers curling in a silent gesture. Panic surged through me, and I turned and ran, stumbling through the dark woods. my heart pounding in my ears. As I reached the safety of our neighborhood, I glanced back one last time. The figure had vanished, its eyes no longer piercing the night. I rushed back to our home, my wife waiting anxiously at the door. I tried to explain what I had seen, but the words came out as disjointed fragments. My wife held me, soothing my fears and assuring me it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been out there in the darkness, something that had come to our quiet neighborhood on Halloween night. Whether it was a restless spirit or something more malevolent, I couldn't be sure. All I knew was that the memory of those piercing eyes would haunt my dreams for years to come. A chilling reminder that, on Halloween, the line between reality and the supernatural can blur into something far more terrifying. The Halloween party at the frat house had promised to be the most epic night of the semester. As a freshman, I was thrilled to be part of the excitement. The house loomed in the darkness, shrouded in mystery and tales of wild debauchery. Little did I know that the night would become a chilling tale of horror that still haunts my dreams. The evening started off like any other college party, with students dressed in costumes ranging from the comical to the downright disturbing. The atmosphere was electric and the music thumped through the speakers, shaking the very foundation of the old, creaky house. I had gone all out with my costume, a creepy scarecrow ensemble complete with straw-stuffed overalls and a sinister grin painted on my mask. It seemed perfect for the occasion. As the night progressed, the house grew more crowded and the revelry intensified. The alcohol flowed freely and raucous laughter echoed through the dimly lit halls. I joined a group of fellow partygoers in a game of beer pong, trying to shake off the unease that had settled over me since I arrived. There was something about this place that felt off, as if an unseen presence lingered in the shadows. My unease deepened when I spotted a peculiar door on the ground floor, tucked away in a corner. It looked ancient, as if it had been there for centuries, a relic from a bygone era. A tarnished brass doorknob and a faded sign above it read "Forbidden Room." My curiosity got the best of me and I couldn't resist the urge to investigate. I excused myself from the game and approached the door. The moment my hand touched the cold doorknob, a chill coursed through my body and the air grew heavy with an oppressive sense of dread. I hesitated for a moment, my heart pounding, but my curiosity was insatiable. I turned the knob and the door creaked open, revealing a narrow, dimly lit staircase that descended into darkness. I crept down the stairs. The further I descended, the colder it became. And the flickering light from a single bare bulb overhead cast eerie shadows on the ancient, decaying walls. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I couldn't turn back now. At the bottom of the staircase, I found myself in a small, windowless room. The walls were adorned with faded and tattered tapestries, each depicting grotesque scenes of death and despair. The room was filled with an assortment of bizarre objects, creepy dolls, ancient books bound in cracked leather, and an old wooden chest intricately carved with grotesque figures. As I cautiously approached the chest, the room seemed to grow colder, and I could see my breath in the frigid air. I reached for the chest's ornate latch, and as I opened it, a foul odor like decay and dampness wafted out. Inside, I found a collection of old photographs, each depicting a different Halloween party at the frat house going back decades. What sent shivers down my spine was that in each photograph, I could spot the same scarecrow mask that I was wearing. My heart raced as I realized the implications. There was something sinister about this room, and the realization that I was not alone struck me like a bolt of lightning. I turned around, and there in the dim light I saw them figures in tattered costumes, their masks twisted into malevolent grins. In a panic, I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest. The figures closed in on me, their movements slow and deliberate. I tried to scream, but no sound escaped my lips. The room seemed to warp and shift around me, as if reality itself was unraveling. I made a desperate dash for the stairs, but with each step they drew closer, their outstretched hands reaching for me. My breath came in ragged gasps as I fought my way past them, racing up the narrow staircase, the darkness closing in behind me. I burst through the door at the top, slamming it shut and locking it with trembling hands. Back in the chaos of the Halloween party, I stumbled through the throngs of oblivious revelers, my mind a whirlwind of terror and confusion. I couldn't comprehend what had just happened, or how I had narrowly escaped those malevolent figures in the Forbidden Room. To this day, I don't know if what I experienced was real or a twisted hallucination brought on by the strange atmosphere of that frat house. But I can't shake the feeling that there was something ancient and malevolent lurking in the shadows that Halloween night, something that had been waiting for me to don that scarecrow mask and unlock the door to its dark and sinister realm. I never returned to that frat house, and I've tried to put the nightmarish events of that Halloween party behind me, but the memory of that forbidden room and the chilling figures within still haunt my nightmares, a reminder that some secrets are better left buried in the darkness where they belong.